Hi, my name is Victor, and I would like to show you how to implement such a drop-down list. You're selecting here a user, and 1, 2, 3, 4 fields are automatically using the value that is saved in a global database. So instead of having the customer to enter all these fields manually, we can use the values from the database and get a lot faster to the result that you see here. Okay, before we continue with the database and the storefront and backend, I would like to prepare the document first. I've already placed it on my XMPy uProduce server, and I have all the fields that are used in the layout inside of here. Currently, it's connected to a counter, but it doesn't change whatever data source you're using at the moment. I will create now for each and every field here, I will create a new variable. That means a var first name. It's a campaign dial because I would need the value, and it will be just empty. And now I will create a new one, var last name empty. Let's fast forward till I have all the variables. Now let me add the last one, that's var country, and it's also be empty. So now that I have my variables in place, email is not necessary. I hope I have everything. All variables in place. I need another one, and that's a bit special. Var, let's call it JavaScript. This JavaScript one will be used later on to place in our JavaScript, and of course it will not be used in our layout or show on the business card anyhow. So here we have all values, all of them are empty, and now let's switch to uStore. Let's first start with the backend. Let's go to the presets, and there you find the data sources set up, and there add a new data source with the credentials and with the username and password from your database server. You could maybe also use the Windows authentication. And what database is connected here, I will show you here. That's the database I've used. You see here, that's the table and that's the database. And you see here it has email, first name, last name, city, house, etc. All fields that I would like, or maybe later on, I would like to use in my business card are inside of here. I've added here around, not around 1,000 recipients or users that we will now fetch in the next step. So this is my database table. It has to be an MS SQL table, and it has to be possible to access this database from uStore. So let's test the connection, and I'm expecting to see a green message that it's successful. Okay, let's save it and then continue to the next step. Now we need to add here some logic and intelligence. So let's get into our business card, take it offline. All the next steps are done within uStore. So let's go to the customization wizard. And in order to do it the proper way, please remove all the fields to the left side. So we will start doing that very efficient from top down, just to make sure. My variables are not visible yet, so I need to do a proof and process, and let's see how it's looking if the tiles show up here. Now that I have done a proof and process, you see all the doors on one hand and all the variables on the other hand. So Before we continue, let's go to email here and click on edit. Now, we will see that needed on every of the steps. So the first one is to select here the drop-down list as an input control, and then select take values from data source, select the data source that we just entered in the backend, and table, that's my multi-pre-population. The first one is, in my case, the email, and the value field here is also the email. So it will be absolutely equal here. I don't need to have a condition language or anything else. Just keep that empty. And also for the next steps, you have to remember not to use any of these fields, or if you use, for example, some kind of fields, it has to be equal in all drop-down lists. You will see the next steps. So let's save it first. So I'm switching to the variable first name, var first name, edit it. Please select here drop-down list. And then the display text field should be email, and also the value field needs to be selected. Now, this one here is for the first name, so make sure the value field is equal, saying first name. Don't check anything below. That's it. So the email, or whatever primary field you selected in the first one, needs to be equal to this. So first name will be used in this drop-down list as a value. Now we are using the Adore and moving it to the right side. Here you see the first name, and this is what we're going to use. Now let's continue. Let's continue with the variable last name. Again, a drop-down list. Take values from data source, uncheck the one here, and select the dependency, the table. And of course, here the first one needs to be again email, the second one needs to be last name. Otherwise it will not work. Last name. Save. This was the variable. Now comes the Adore. Here we go. Last name as Adore. And this is just a text. Okay, and keep it empty without anything inside. Also here for the first name, it's empty. There is nothing in here, and it's not changed. Let me continue with street, house number, zip, etc. And let's continue then in this video. I've now added all of these, or most of these fields. That should be enough for the beginning. And now, until the house number, as you see, all the variables with var have drop-down lists, and all the others have still the text box and nothing changed in there. Now, in order to let that work, let's go back to the variables and use the var JavaScript. This is where the magic happens. Now, before we continue, we need some fields from the JavaScript. So let me save it like that, place it online, and let's have a look in front end how this looks like. Now, we have here the big list of the recipients, and then we have, or the recipients, I mean from the people from the additional data source, as you see here. And also here, you see that. It's always the same. The system will later on automatically adjust the email, or the JavaScript will later on adjust the email and make them all equal, and then read the values. Before we continue with that, we need, on one hand, the JavaScript. This is how it looks like, JavaScript. If you make it smaller, you see that this one here is important. This is like the parent drop-down list. and it needs a specific ID. So when I go here on the email, this is my parent value. Right click, inspect element, and it will guide me exactly to the place that I need. This is it. So I'm entering that inside of this placeholder. Here we go. That's the drop-down list. And now we need here, and this is as long as you want to be, this is the drop-down list, for example, for the first name, etc. And this is the text box that needs to be entered. You will see in a moment what I mean. Let's go back to the front end. Let's get a little bit more space. And now I'm selecting the first name, the drop-down list, taking the value from here and putting that inside of here. Now let's do it for the next one. And this is where the value goes inside of the text box. So I'm copying that and placing it in here. And let's do that for the next rows. Go to the front end. That's the drop-down list for the last name. Here it is. And now let's go to the front end again. Let's take the text field and place it in here. There it is. Now, you could see here that the numbers are increasing. It's just increasing by 1. But it's not always this case. So just in case to be secured on the outcome, let's make that manually. So that's now the street. That's the third value. And for the street text box, it's this value here. I need more space or more element, I think just the house numbers. So I'm duplicating this line. And also here in the end, I'm just putting there a comma. And now here, the last ones I still have to do. So the drop down for the house number, just copy it, placing it. You see it's just 30, 31, 32, 33. And I'm expecting it's quite simple, this one. So I'm placing it here. Actually, this is jumping a little bit higher to 34. Anyhow, that's it. Just make sure the last one doesn't have to have a comma. The rest should automatically work without any problem. So I'm copying all that JavaScript and entering the product again, the backend, actually JavaScript, and changing from text input to HTML generic. And just copying it, pasting it inside of here. Okay, so this is what I've done. Nothing else, just copying it inside, saving it. Of course, visible to customer. The customer will not see anything from this JavaScript form. So I'm placing it online. Let me have a look what I got. Just refreshing. So in the best scenario, whenever I'm changing here in the top to a value, all these other drop-down lists should select absolutely the same value. This is what one of the things the JavaScript is doing. Besides having all drop-down lists having the same value, also it's adding the value, the sub-value from the drop-down list to this text box. So let me test that. Somehow the house number stays empty. Why is that? Let me check if I've copied the right one. It looks like I copied something wrong. So I'm copying the ID of this text box here, this input text. I'm copying it again to my JavaScript, to this place. Actually, that makes sense. So now it's just an counting. So let me take it offline again. Go to the customization wizard, the JavaScript. Placing it inside of here should fix that tiny issue. Let's have a look. So whenever I'm changing it here, see the house number is entered by the system. As I have here 1,000 rows in the database, you see that it's changing quite fast. I mean, you don't see, if you have it in front of you, you will see it's really fast and it's no lagging or anything. But of course, you cannot leave it like that. You have to hide all these variable informations, and that's a simple task out of the box within uStore. You go to the customization wizard and you're entering all variables and making them not visible to the customer by unchecking this box. Street and house number. Then placing it online, you will see how it looks like. Okay, so I'm selecting a value and you see everything is changing depending on the value that I selected in the first drop-down list. And of course, if I'm changing any of these values, you will see on the right side that we use those values that I changed. But of course, if I'm just selecting the email in the top, it will use that value. Or keep it empty, the page will be empty too.